Hey guys, for those of you who don't know me or are new, I'm Maddy and I'm a second year auditor at a Big 4 firm. Today I was just thinking about when I started this channel in my honours year. I was literally failing all of my subjects and I just needed a creative way to not fail anymore and hopefully help other people not fail. And at the time I was definitely in a position where I was thinking this isn't going to happen for me because I don't know, it all just seems so difficult, and if I'm finding it difficult now in my honours year, how am I going to find it in the working world? And it's funny looking back at it now, being a second year and only having a year or so to go before I qualify as a CASA, that all seems so silly and it's absolutely achievable. And so before I start this video, I just want to let all of you know, for those of you doing your honours or university, don't let the marks dictate how you will be as a professional, because it doesn't mean anything. You will absolutely make it. But I'm getting sidetracked. In today's video, I really wanted to talk about what entering into the audit world actually looks like. For me, when I was in university, I had no idea. I just heard basically horror stories about overtime and working on hectic clients and just people not enjoying the experience at all. And going into auditing, actually, I've had a very different experience. And so hopefully after this video, you will gauge an actual understanding of what being an audit really does look like. So I'm going to firstly be discussing what entering into the audit world looks like, especially at a Big 4 firm, because that's obviously my experience. And then secondly, what being a first year is like. And thirdly, what you can expect after first year. Yeah. Okay, chapter 1, entering into the audit world. Setting the scene, you're a freshly graduated PGDA student or CTA honours student. Now, you're expected to go to work the very next day, which seems insane, but you're just going to have to do it. And then your first week at the Big 4 firm will be mostly training. You're going to learn the systems that this particular firm uses, and you'll learn about the IT systems and just the basics of auditing, so that when you get to your first client, you're not completely clueless, but you definitely will be, and that's not a problem. Seriously, don't be hard on yourself in this first week when you just don't understand the firm's methodologies at all, or how to audit, or how to use Excel. That's a given. In your first year, you are expected to learn, and that's it. There's very little expectation set on you, and that's a great thing, trust me. The only thing that you should take away from that first week is how to submit a timesheet, which you will come to become very, very familiar with in your working life. Although I must stress, if there is one thing to also pay attention to besides the timesheet thing, it is Excel. This is something you're going to become very familiar with. It is your bread and butter as an auditor. But don't stress now if you're not an Excel pro. It will come. Although I can make the recommendation, start on Excel early, and it doesn't mean that you need to know how to code in VBA. It just means learning basic shortcuts, pivot tables, VLOOKUPs, that sort of thing. Just the basics to get you to grips with what you'll be doing for, I guess, the next 3 years of your life. Now, after that week of training, you're going to be placed on your first client. This is daunting as hell for anybody, but don't stress about it. Your team is probably very lovely and very happy to have you. Once you find out who your team is, your third year, so your supervisor, will probably reach out to you at this point and say, hey bro, you'll be on XYZ audit, and this is what you need to know before starting. We'll be working at the client, or we'll be working mostly from home, or we'll be working at the office. And they basically just set the scene for what you can expect. You'll never be expected to know everything. You're probably not even expected to reach out to your supervisor or manager. They should be the ones approaching you about the client. But if they don't, never be shy to just pop them a message. But make sure that it's either to your supervisor or your senior, and as a last resort your manager, but never your partner. The one thing I can tell you about the audit world is that it's very big on the chain of command. So when in doubt, always go one level above you rather than skip, I don't know, to the top of the staircase or whatever. On your first day of the audit, be very prepared to learn. It's basically assumed, and this I mean in a very nice way, that you're useless and yeah, you're basically incapable of doing anything at this point. That is fine. Just take it all in. When they teach you how to sample, when they teach you how to set up a workbook, listen and observe. And that's the best thing you can do. Don't try to do things by yourself when you don't fully understand. Just try to understand everything. Take notes. I used to make a lot of Excel documents being like, first day of client and all the things I learned, and that really does help if you can reflect back and be like, okay, cool, I remember that, I took that away from that day. Another thing to mention is that if at this point you've been put onto a big listed client, because unfortunately most listed clients have a year end of 31 December, so that means that for the next 3 months, Jan to March, we'll have a very busy audit period. It's literally called the busy season. And during this time, your seniors, so your second year and your third year, and then obviously your managers, are extremely stressed. There's a very tight deadline to get things to turn around. Obviously, because if you're listed, you've got JSE requirements. So the audit report does need to be signed quite swiftly, and the audit team needs to be working at full capacity to get things done. And it's unfortunate because you've also come in not knowing anything, and now your second year has to help you adjust and learn, and while also taking care of their sections, which are very difficult at this point. And it is just a very stressful time, I think, for everyone. But it's not to say that it's going to be unpleasant or that it has to be unpleasant. In a way, this is almost the best sort of situation, because you're going to come in and you're going to be thrown completely in the deep end, and you're going to be expected to learn very quickly and pick up the slack, and you're going to be expected to work very, very hard, definitely harder than you've ever worked before. And that's a great thing on your first client, because then you're going to become so used to that sort of rhythm and that sort of hard work that any other client going forward actually seems like a piece of cake. What you do find is that after that busy season, generally your year will start to lull. And that's what I've experienced now, and that's why I've taken such a big break from these videos. Is I have a big client in Jan to March, and then there afterwards things do kind of trickle away and then pick up again at the end of the year. And that's lovely. I really enjoy the hustle and bustle, and I like that there is a space in between where you can kind of gather your thoughts and take stock, and then get ready again to have another hectic busy season. And I think that is what they say about auditing, is that, you know, you will work really hard, you will work overtime, for sure you will, absolutely. But when you have an awesome team in this fun environment where everyone is working together, and yes, maybe you're doing, I don't know, 4 hours in the evening, it's fun when you're doing it together and going through it. I must say it has made my audit experience really, really cool. Although the entire audit can be stressful as hell, if your audit team is cute and you make good relationships with everyone, there's no reason for it to be a hellish busy season at all. Now, the rest of your year, so beyond busy season and entering into your first client, you're going to be expected, as I say, to learn, and to learn very quickly. There's a massive learning curve. To start off, you're going to be assigned to very basic workbooks. So cash and bank and operating expenses are the usual ones given to first years. And when I say workbooks are Excel documents containing all the tabs in an Excel doc needed to test all the risks involved in a particular section. So for cash and bank, this is very theoretical, but you're going to be testing the valuation. How much are your cash assets valued at? You'll test occurrence. Do they actually exist? And basically all those audit assertions that you learn in your governance or your auditing subject, those come into play. And then in these workbooks, basically what you're doing is testing that those assertions are covered, and that where you have differences in amounts, so say for example in cash and bank, one of the procedures that you have to do is an external bank confirmation. So the entity is giving you what they say their bank is valued at, and you reach out to the bank directly and you get a statement from them, and you compare these two. And if there's a difference, then you have to compare it against what materiality is. And materiality is calculated the exact same way as you would have learned in audit, being a percentage of revenue or gross profit, or whatever the case might be for this particular entity. And if it's greater than what we call an SAD, or basically a misstatement, then we have an issue and it needs to be raised with your manager or ultimately your client, so that we can gain the proper supporting documentation as to why there is this difference. But you don't need to stress about materiality. As a first year, this is never something that you'd have to calculate. And if you do, you will have an extreme support system to make sure that that figure that you're dealing with is completely accurate, and it will be reviewed 100 million times. What you'll hopefully find after doing a few sets of workbooks in your clients, whether you're on one client the whole year, that does happen, or you're on multiple clients, is that you get confident with whatever workbook you're thrown at. So whether it be cash and bank, OPEX, revenue, whatever the case might be, you're like, awesome, I know the basic principles of how to set up a workbook. I understand the risks involved with these accounts because it is documented on file, which is just where all of your either prior year or current year documents surrounding the entity exist. You'll know exactly how to audit it. But the best thing about being a first year is that no one is expecting you to be the best. They're expecting you to learn. And if you have that mindset going forward and you're not so hard on yourself, you'll be absolutely a-okay. And the most valuable thing I can leave you with is to ask questions where you need help, because my role as a second year is to assist my first years so that they can become exceptional second years. So to summarize, as you continue into your first year, here are some of my pro tips. 1, ask as many questions as possible. Now is your time to learn. Don't take it for granted, because coming into second year, let me tell you, you are expected to take a much more senior role and you're expected to know things. So ask those questions in year 1. 2, review notes will not kill you. Review notes are little notes that your manager or your supervisor, whoever's reviewing your workbook, is going to leave you saying, hey Maddy, you did not do this properly, please, da da da. And it always feels like an affront, like, you know, I'm not good enough, oh my gosh, I completely messed up this workbook. I promise you it never is. I think there's no way of making a review note sound very nice unless you add smiley faces, and unfortunately no one does. So it's just one of those things that you're going to have to deal with, and I think it makes you much stronger and more resilient when people are critiquing your work, and it will always make you a better auditor. But if you don't understand why your manager raised a certain review note, then you can always go chat to them and resolve it. Point 3, Excel is your best friend. You work on Excel 8 hours minimum a day, and you need to know shortcuts, you need to know how to use VLOOKUPs, you need to know how to use conditional formatting. You must be able to deal with Excel well to make your job go smooth. Best believe this is a skill that you want to hone. Number 4, don't be afraid of a challenge. At the end of last year, I was put on a massive client. It was our first time dealing with this client, and it was a massive challenge. I didn't know my team, and the actual systems itself were very complex. There was so much to learn, but it ended up being the most valuable experience for me because I was forced into this environment where I had to learn so much and pick up on new skills, like talking to the client, because if you don't understand something, ultimately that is where you go to. Hey dude, how do these systems work? Please lead me through this process. This is something you'll become very familiar with in system descriptions and walkthroughs, but ultimately you're going to be chatting to your client, which seems so scary as a first year, but it becomes such an important skill to have as you enter into the professional world. So on this client, although it was extremely hectic, the lessons I learned from it have been so valuable that going forward into other clients, I really have felt just so awesome and confident, and I could just talk to anyone and I could just do any workbook, and it's been very, very cool. So I recommend taking on as many challenges as you can so that you don't actually want a very easy audit. You need some challenges to weather you so that you have something to show at the end of articles being like, hey, I've been confronted with challenges and difficulties and this is how I've dealt with it. And then leading on from point 4 is point 5, talk to the client. This is actually quite a cool thing. We are basically children and we are able to speak to the financial managers, the CFOs, these big dogs of very big clients, and that's so cool because they do have a lot of experience and you're able to have this back and forth conversation and be like, no, you're wrong, or no, you're right. Or I think the most important thing to learn here is that no one likes auditors. Unfortunately, you are going in critiquing their financial systems and something that they would have way more experience than you do, being a 12-year-old. And it's such a fun experience when you've actually won the trust of a client or when the client actually enjoys working with you. So it is really good to build a relationship with the client, and this is something that you will hone over the years. Obviously, you can't be buddy-buddy with them. That's really not the point of an auditor. You need to become more than an email signature to them so that when they are dealing with you, they provide you with information much faster. So it's just a more pleasant and efficient audit. And number 6, make friends. If you're not making friends, then you're not going to enjoy your audit career. My year has been so much better because I took the time to, be part of firm events and see my work friends on the weekend. And it's just so fun. If I go into the office, I know on a given day, I'll see someone I know, and it's awesome. And then lastly, going forward, I'm in my 2nd year now. So what that means is as an audit senior, you are expected to basically start transitioning into the 3rd year supervisor role, because your supervisors have completed their APC, which is the 2nd board exam, and they're ready to basically just get the hell out of there. Or they'll stay on, but their mindset is definitely towards just finishing that year and qualifying. So as the 2nd year, you are dealing with a lot on your plate. You have your board exam, which you have to study for throughout the entire year. Then you're on, busy season, you're working overtime, you're on very difficult workbooks. And then also you've got to be now assisting your 1st year, which is a challenge because sometimes I don't know the answers all the time, but you have to be there for your 1st year and making sure that they're always on track with their work because ultimately you are responsible for them. And then as a 3rd year, I don't have experience there yet, but basically you will be in charge of the audit. You're like a mini manager, and you'll be overseeing that everyone is on track. You're going to be doing a lot of admin in terms of project management, making sure that you have this budget for the client and that everyone is meeting their goals in terms of the hours spent on each workbook, and that if there are any issues, you are reporting directly to your manager. A really good supervisor will have everything under check. They'll have very good chain of command with all of their peers, so that the 3rd year to the 2nd year, 2nd year to the 1st year, and a very good idea of what's going on in the audit. They were not just going to be flailing around. And then thereafter, guys, I think the beautiful thing about now being a CA is that you really are an all-rounded sort of individual where you have experience dealing with difficult people, you have experience dealing with difficult subject matters. So as a hire, you are very attractive because you are just more equipped to deal with business problems. So it is a very cool career in that sense that you have a career. You have so many options, whether to stay in audit or transfer to tax, or if you want to be a financial manager and do the actual books yourself, or whatever it is, you have this sort of business expertise that not a lot of careers can offer you. So that's my 2 cents. If you do have any other questions about what auditing is like, I'm really so stoked to answer any questions, always. But otherwise, if you guys are writing exams now, I think it's exam time, I'm very out the loop these days, then good luck, you'll slay them. Yeah, but otherwise I'll see you guys soon.